The signal pulsed every 4.7 seconds. It had done so for 15,000 years. On the bridge of the patrol frigate Sparrow Lieutenant Commander Vasquez watched the reading climb from yellow to red. The encryption key had no match in Concord archives. The registry code translated to a name that did not appear in any census: the Vagrant Asterisk. The sector had been unregistered for 15 millennia. There were no humans that far back, not in any record, not in any memory, but the registry claimed human origin. That was the point. The Asterisk Sparrow dropped out of warp at the signal's source. What they found was not a wreck. It was a worldlet, 12 kilometers of silent metal, ringed by frozen debris. Vasquez ordered passive scan. The sensors returned a single word: dormant asterisk. Then the hull recognized her biosignature. The defense grid woke, not to fire, to recognize. Across 43 star systems, 6 sister stations that had been broadcasting on frequencies too low for modern sensors suddenly shifted to full power. Concord listening posts lit up with 7 simultaneous signals, each 15,000 years old, each asking the same question: "Are you here? Have you come back?" 12 cruisers dropped out of warp above them. The 12th Fleet. Admiral Koreth Venn had come to destroy a hoax. What he found was older than the Concord's founding charter. No one spoke. No one moved. The signal kept pulsing. You'll want to hear what happened next, because that was only the beginning. 2 weeks earlier in the rotunda, Ambassador Ren Voss unscrewed his thermos. The coffee had gone cold. He drank it anyway. The dent in the steel fit his thumb perfectly, a reminder of a zero-G drop 7 years ago that he had walked away from. He had walked away from a lot of things. The rotunda was the Concord's heart, a chamber the size of a small moon, its crystal ceiling 400 meters up, showing cold stars. 4,127 species had delegates here, but today the air was thin with ozone and political cowardice. Voss sat in the observation gallery, coat patched with the faded insignia of the colony ship Enduring Asterisk. He had worn it for 19 years in the diplomatic corps, a posting the galaxy considered trivial. On the floor below, Fleet Admiral Koreth Venn stood at the central platform. His skin was cured amber, his left eye a synthetic ruby, his ceremonial plate etched with 47 kill marks, one for each world he had helped annex. He spoke with the cleaner word: stabilization for conquest, asterisk relocation for displacement. His voice carried without amplification. "The signal is a hoax," Venn declared. "A corrupted archive, a ghost in the old frequencies. The sector is unregistered because nothing has ever lived there. The encryption key is non-standard, which means it is not ours. We will not waste resources chasing a phantom." The vote was called. 2,847 delegates raised their hands for dismissal. 16 voted to investigate. Voss was not among the delegates. He had no vote, but he watched the 16. One was Ambassador Liasai, a volley 3 feet tall, voice like wind through reeds. She wore a broken circle pendant. She had been the only one to speak against the motion. Voss took another sip of cold coffee. He thought about the dent in the thermos. He thought about the asterisk Enduring Asterisk, a ship he had never seen, whose patch he had inherited from his grandfather. The Enduring had been lost. Everyone said so, but Voss had never believed it. That night on the Outer Rim, Lieutenant Commander Vasquez was running her routine patrol. The Sparrow was old, chipped paint, rattling left thruster, 32 crew. She had logged 8 years of routes that no one read. She was supposed to ignore the signal. But it came through on a frequency that the ship's computer flagged as asterisk preconcord asterisk. She called Dr. Yuki Tanaka from her bunk. Tanaka was 61, a xenoarchaeologist who had spent 34 years studying the time before the first assembly. She wore wire-rimmed glasses and adjusted them with 2 fingers before she spoke bad news. "That's not a hoax," Tanaka said, staring at the readout. The timestamp is 15,000 years, 42 days, and 7 hours old. The registry code translates to the vagrant asterisk, and the encryption key, it matches the founding charter's original transmission standard. Vasquez said, the founding charter predates the conquered. Yes, Tanaka said. By 600 years. Vasquez sent a formal request to Concord Central, permission to investigate. She included Tanaka's findings. She expected a response within the hour. 3 hours later, a single line came back from the 12th Fleet. Return to your patrol route. This is an administrative matter. Signed by Admiral Venn. Vasquez read it twice. She did not reply. She did not move. The Sparrow asterisk held position. In the rotunda, Voss received a coded transmission from a Mavari elder, a species so small and frail they were often mistaken for children. The elder's name was Saraketh. She was 890 years old. Her message was 3 words, I remember them. Voss sent back 4, how many stations? The reply came 2 hours later, 7. Voss began making calls. He had no fleet, no authority, no vote. What he had was a list of 6 species, the ones who had voted no, the ones who had whispered warnings for centuries. He reached out to the Vali, to the Mavari, to 3 others whose names appeared in no conquered directory. He asked them one question, do you have records of the first expansion? He did not sleep that night. He drank cold coffee from the dented thermos and watched the stars through the crystal ceiling. He thought about the asterisk enduring asterisk, a colony ship that had launched 15,000 years ago, carrying 4,000 colonists to a sector that was now unregistered. The conquered had forgotten, but the signal had not. On the asterisk Sparrow, Tanaka spent 72 hours in the archive bay. She found 3 references in Mavari oral histories, whispered tales of a people who had left before the conquered. She found one in a Vali song cycle, a broken circle verse about light that traveled beyond memory. And she found the original mission parameters in a corrupted data core. Shipyards behind Jupiter's mass shadow, mathematics the modern galaxy had lost, a network of 7 seed stations designed to awaken when human DNA touched the hull. She transmitted her findings to Voss. Her message ended with a line that made him set down the thermos for the first time in hours. The vagrant was the first. The other 6 have been broadcasting for 15,000 years. We just couldn't hear them. Voss sat in the dark. He had been waiting 19 years, waiting for a sign that humanity was not just the young, quiet species the conquered catalogued as unremarkable. He had carried a dented thermos and a longer silence than anyone imagined. Now he had proof. He sent a single message to the Sparrow, hold position. I will handle the Admiral. He did not tell Vasquez how. In his flagship asterisk, unyielding asterisk, Admiral Venn received a report from Ensign Drueth, a young bridge officer with a synthetic ruby optic that flickered when he was nervous. Drueth had run the encryption through 17 protocols. Each one returned the same answer. This is not conquered code. This is older. Admiral Drueth said, the encryption key predates the conquered. It predates the first assembly. It predates everything. Venn's synthetic optic did not blink. He said nothing for 12 seconds. Then he said, send the intercept order, 12 cruisers. The Sparrow is to be detained and its crew reassigned. Drueth hesitated. Sir, the encryption, it's human. The ship's registry claims human origin. There were no humans 15,000 years ago, Venn said. That is a fact. That is the end of this conversation. But Drueth did not move. He looked at the readout, then back at his admiral. His optic flickered again. Sir, the registry code, it's older than the Concord's charter, older than the first assembly, and it's human. That means... He stopped. He could not finish the sentence. Venn turned away. Execute the order. On the asterisk Sparrow, Vasquez received the intercept notice. She read it aloud to Tanaka. Both women sat in silence for a long moment. Then Vasquez said, "We have 72 hours before they arrive." Tanaka adjusted her glasses. 72 hours to do what? Vasquez turned to the helm. She did not have clearance. She did not have permission. She had a frigate with a rattling thruster and a signal that had waited 15,000 years. "We go," she said. "We go now." She sent a final message to Voss. "I'm going. Tell them whatever you need to tell them." In the rotunda, Voss read the message. He stood up. He walked to the observation rail, thermos in hand, and looked up at the crystal ceiling. The stars were cold and endless. Somewhere out there, a seed station was waking. Somewhere, 7 voices were asking if anyone had come back. He thought about the dent in the thermos. He thought about his grandfather who had worn the enduring patch. He thought about the 6 species he had called, the ones who remembered. He sent 6 words to Admiral Ven's flagship. He did not wait for a reply. He walked out of the gallery, thermos under his arm, and did not look back. The corridor was empty. The crystal ceiling's light had faded to a dim blue, marking the shift cycle. Voss walked with a steady pace, thermos tucked under his arm, his coat's asterisk enduring patch catching the low glow. He passed a volley attendant who bowed slightly, a gesture of respect that was rare in the rotunda. Voss nodded without slowing. He reached a secure comms room, a small alcove with a single terminal shielded from the Concord's public network. He keyed in a code that had been passed down through his family for generations. The screen flickered to life. He typed a message to the 6 species, the ones who had voted no, the ones who remembered. It was short. "The signal is real. The vagrant is waking. Send whatever you have." Then he opened a direct line to the unyielding. He did not type a formal transmission. He typed 6 words, read them once, and pressed send. "They were here first. We remember." He shut off the terminal. He did not wait for a reply. On the bridge of the unyielding asterisk, Ensign Druoth's synthetic ruby optic flickered as the message arrived. He read it, then read it again. His mouth opened and closed. He turned to Admiral Ven, who was studying a tactical display of the intercept formation. "Admiral," Druoth said, his voice thin, "a message from the human ambassador, to you directly." Ven did not look up. "Read it." Druoth swallowed. "He says they were here first, we remember." The silence that followed was absolute. The bridge crew, 12 officers, stopped their work. Ven's ruby optic fixed on Druoth, but his face showed nothing. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he stood. "Did you confirm the source?" Ven asked. "It's from his diplomatic code, sir. Unmistakable." Ven walked to the main display. The 12 cruisers of the 12th Fleet were shown as green dots, converging on the Sparrow S projected course. He studied the formation for a moment. Then he said, "Increase speed to maximum. I want the Sparrow detained before they reach that signal." "Sir," Druoth started. "Execute the order." Druoth hesitated, then relayed the command. The green dots began to accelerate. Ven returned to his chair and sat down. He did not look at the message again, but his hand, resting on the armrest, slowly curled into a fist. On the Sparrow, Vasquez was pushing the engines beyond their rated output. The left thruster rattled in protest, but the ship held. Tanaka stood beside her, tablet in hand, reading the latest data. "Tanaka, tell me something good," Vasquez said. Tanaka adjusted her glasses. "I found a log entry from the Vagrant S original mission. It's in an old Earth language English, but with archaic phrasing." She turned the tablet. "A colonist named Alara wrote it," she said. "We are 7 seeds. We will sleep until our children return. The stations are our memory. The signal is our voice. If you hear this, we are still here." Vasquez stared at the screen. "She wrote that 15,000 years ago. 14,958 years ago, give or take. but yes. All of them, they're still there, in cryo. Tanaka nodded slowly. The log says the cryosystems were designed to last 20,000 years. They had redundancies. They knew the conquered would forget. They knew we would have to come back on our own. Vasquez exhaled. We're not coming back, we're just now showing up. The ship's sensors chirped. A new signal, not the vagrant *S pulse, but a low-frequency broadcast from a different point in the sector. Then another, and another. Tanaka's eyes widened. 6 more signals, they're all active now. The defense grid must have triggered them when the vagrant * woke. They're broadcasting the same message, are you here? Have you come back? On frequencies we can finally detect. Vasquez looked at the helm. How long until we reach the origin point? At current speed, 6 hours, the helmsman said. And the cruisers? A tactical officer spoke up. They're moving faster than us. They'll intercept in approximately 4 hours. Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then she said, increase thrust to 110%. I don't care if the thruster falls off. In the rotunda's lower levels, Voss found Ambassador Liasai in her quarters, a small room filled with broken circle symbols and dry reed baskets. She stood on a stool to reach his eye level. Her voice was like wind through reeds. I have sent word to my people, she said. They are preparing a diplomatic vessel, but it will take days to arrive. We don't have days, Voss said. I know, she touched her broken circle pendant. The Vali have always remembered, but memory is not speed. What do you intend to do, Ambassador? Voss set his thermos on her table. The dent faced upward. I intend to show the conquered that its oldest dismissal was its greatest mistake. The vagrant * is not a hoax. It is the proof that humanity had an empire before the conquered was born. And that empire... He paused. That empire never stopped waiting. Liasai studied him. You are not asking for permission. You are already acting. Yes. Then I will help you, but you must understand when the truth comes, the conquered will not simply accept it. They will fight it. With votes, with fleets, with laws. Are you ready for that? Voss picked up the thermos. I've been ready for 19 years. 4 hours later, the Sparrow was minutes from the signal's origin. The left thruster was smoking, but they were almost there. The tactical display showed the 12 cruisers closing fast. They would arrive less than a minute after the Sparrow *. Vasquez keyed the ship-wide intercom. All hands brace for possible contact. We are entering the signal zone. Tanaka was at her station, scanning the growing shape on the forward viewport. I see it. It's enormous, 12 kilometers long, a mobile worldlet. The hull is covered in frozen debris, but the structure is intact, and the energy signature is rising. It's waking up. Vasquez's hand hovered over the comms. Open a channel. Broadcast our identification. Human Patrol Frigate * Sparrow *, Lieutenant Commander Vasquez commanding. The channel opened. For a moment there was only static. Then a voice, ancient, crackling, speaking in a dialect of English that was almost impossible to parse, said, Who is there? Have you come to wake us? Vasquez looked at Tanaka. Tanaka nodded, tears in her eyes. That's the same voice. That's Ilara's voice, or a recording of it. Vasquez leaned into the mic. This is Lieutenant Commander Vasquez of the * Sparrow. We are human. We have come. A long pause. Then the voice spoke again. You are our children. We have waited. We have kept the light on. Do you remember your promise? Vasquez did not know what promise, but she said, We remember. Behind them, the 12 cruisers dropped out of warp. On the Unyielding, Ven watched the tactical plot. The Sparrow was at the signal origin. The Vagrant was now fully active, emitting a massive energy signature that scrambled the cruiser's sensors. Ven stood at the main viewport, staring at the image of the seed station, a structure that dwarfed his flagship. Status of the * Sparrow, he demanded. Druoth reported. They have established contact with the station, sir. The station's defense grid is powering up. Defense grid? What kind of defense? It's not targeting us, Admiral. It's targeting something else. The energy signature is spreading across the entire sector. I'm reading 6 other power sources. They're the sister stations. They're all coming online. Ven's ruby optic flickered. For the first time in 287 years, he felt something he had not felt since he was a young officer: uncertainty. Open a channel to the asterisk Sparrow asterisk, he ordered. I want to speak to that commander. The channel opened. Vasquez's face appeared on the main screen, grim and exhausted. Commander, you are in violation of conquered law. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Vasquez looked past him at the image of the vagrant filling the viewport behind her. She said, Admiral, the station is broadcasting its registry code. It's older than the Concord's founding charter, and it's human. You said there were no humans 15,000 years ago. You were wrong. Ven's jaw tightened. That is not possible. The vagrant's defense grid flared. A beam of pure recognition, not a weapon but a signal, shot across the sector, touching each of the 6 sister stations. They responded in kind. Within moments, a network of 7 ancient human outposts was fully active, broadcasting a message that spanned 43 star systems. We are here. We have always been here. On the bridge of the unyielding asterisk, not a single officer moved. The 12 cruisers hung in space, their crews staring at their screens. The certainty of the conquered, 9,000 years of institutional memory, collapsed into silence. Ven looked at Druoth. Druoth's optic was flickering rapidly. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. Then the Sparrow sent a final transmission to the fleet. Admiral, you have 12 cruisers. We have 7 stations, 3,847 sleeping colonists, and a truth you cannot erase. What do you want to do now? Ven did not answer. He could not. The message repeated every few seconds. 15,000 years of waiting, and the only thing the station had ever asked was whether anyone remembered. And someone had. The defense grid fired again. It did not target the cruisers. It hit the comms relay. The unyielding asterisk S long-range array went dark, and Admiral Ven's fleet lost contact with Concord Central. Ensign Druoth's hands flew across the console. The station is overriding our frequencies, Admiral. We're jammed. Ven's ruby optic burned. Kill it. I can't, sir. The encryption, it's not a weapon. It's a handshake protocol. The station is trying to verify our identity. Verify what? Druoth stared at the screen. It's asking if we are the ones it was waiting for. On the unyielding asterisk S viewport, the vagrant's hull shifted. Panels that had been dark for millennia opened, revealing light. The seed station was not just waking, it was listening. A light transport, barely bigger than a shuttle, carried Voss and Leasai toward the vagrant's docking bay. Voss had borrowed it from a Mavari trader. The trader had asked no questions. Leasai sat strapped into the co-pilot seat, her small frame barely reaching the viewport. You are certain this will work? No, Voss said, but we don't have time to be uncertain. He reached into his coat and pulled out the thermos. He held it for a moment, feeling the dent under his thumb. Then he twisted the base counterclockwise. The bottom of the thermos popped open. A chip the size of his thumbnail clicked out. Leasai's eyes widened. That is a first-cycle data chip. Where did you get it? My grandfather, Voss said. He was a historian. He studied the old records. Before he died, he told me to keep this. He said it was a spare key. I never knew what for. He turned the chip over. It was etched with a symbol, the same broken circle the Vali wore, but whole. Leasai touched her pendant. That is the seal of the 7 seeds. It is the oldest Vali symbol. We thought it was only a legend. Voss inserted the chip into the transport's auxiliary reader. The screen flickered, then displayed a single line of text: Settlement Protocols, authorized by the Vagrant Council. Legend is just memory that outlived the witnesses, Voss said. 15,000 years is a long time to be forgotten, but it's not long enough to erase a key. On the Sparrow Tanaka's console lit up with a cascade of data. She adjusted her glasses, reading furiously. Vasquez stood behind her, watching the readings. "What is it?" Vasquez asked. "The sister stations," Tanaka said. "They're not just broadcasting a greeting, they're broadcasting a code, a timing sequence." "For what?" Tanaka scrolled down. "It's a response window. The network is waiting for formal acknowledgement, an official declaration from the conquered that this sector and its inhabitants are recognized as a sovereign entity." "How long do we have?" Tanaka's face went pale. "The transmission says 12 hours. After that, the network goes into failsafe." "What does failsafe mean?" Tanaka read the next line aloud. "If no acknowledgement is received, the network will assume the mission is lost and initiate emergency protocols. These protocols include the broadcast of the original founding charter to all conquered systems, and the shutdown of the Conquered's navigation beacon network." Vasquez stared at her. "They can do that, they can shut down the beacons." "The Conquered's nav system is built on old human technology," Tanaka said. "They adapted it, but they never rewrote the core code. The Vagrant's network has the root access. If it shuts down the beacons, every ship in Conquered space loses its bearings. 1,000 years of trade, military movement, colonization, all of it would freeze." Vasquez was silent for a moment, then she keyed the comms. "Voss, are you reading this?" A crackling reply came back. "Reading it. I'm almost at the docking bay." "What do we do?" Voss's voice was calm. "We get inside. We find a way to stop the failsafe, and we make sure the Conquered hears the truth before it's too late." On the unyielding Ven's tactical officers were struggling to restore communications. The jam was partial now. They could receive, but not send. Druoth was monitoring the Vagrant's transmissions. "Admiral," Druoth said, his voice shaking, "the station is broadcasting a countdown, 12 hours, and it includes a data packet, the original founding charter of the Conquered." Ven turned. "What?" "I've cross-referenced it. It's identical, word for word. The charter the Conquered uses, it was copied from the Vagrant's registry. The founders took it. They built an empire on stolen documents." Ven's synthetic ruby optic flickered. He walked to Druoth's station and read the data himself. His face, carved from centuries of certainty, began to crack. "Show me proof," he said. Druoth pulled up the comparison. "The encryption key, the language structure, the legal phrasing, it's all older than the first assembly. It predates the founders. They did not write this. They found it." Ven stood motionless. His 287 years of conquest, his 47 Killmark etchings, his entire belief system, it had been built on a borrowed lie. He opened his mouth to speak, but no sound came. A hologram flickered to life on the Sparrow S bridge. It was Saraketh, the Mavari elder, her translucent skin silver-threaded, her ancient eyes filled with something that looked like grief. "Lieutenant Commander," she said, her voice like rustling leaves, "you have heard the countdown. You have seen the truth. The Conquered does not know, but it will learn. The failsafe was designed by the humans who left. They knew the Conquered would try to erase them, so they made the truth undeniable. If no one acknowledges them within 12 hours, the network will broadcast the original charter to every system and shut down the beacons." "Can we stop it?" Vasquez asked. "Only from the inside. The Vagrant's council chamber holds the override key. It requires a human biosignature and the seal of the 7 seeds. Your ambassador Voss carries both." Vasquez looked at the transport's approach vector. "He's going to make it." He must, Saraketh said, because if he does not, the galaxy will collapse into silence. Voss's transport clanged against the Vagrant's docking clamp. The bay doors groaned open, ancient hydraulics hissing. Voss stood, thermos in hand, chip in his pocket. Liasai followed him, her small feet barely keeping pace. The interior was cold. The air smelled of recycled oxygen and something else, old metal, old hope. The corridors were wide, designed for thousands of colonists moving in dormancy. Emergency lights flickered along the walls, guiding them forward. Voss walked with purpose. He had waited 19 years for a sign that humanity's past was not just a footnote. He had carried a dented thermos through diplomatic meetings, through dismissive glances, through the long silence of a galaxy that had forgotten. He stopped in front of a massive door. It was etched with the 7 seeds symbol, 7 circles arranged in a ring, one for each station. In the center was a small indentation. Liasai looked at it, that shape. Voss looked at the dent in his thermos, the exact same size, the exact same curve. He had dropped the thermos 7 years ago in a zero-G evacuation. He had always assumed the dent was accidental. Now he knew better. "Stand back," he said. He pressed the thermos's dent against the door's indentation. It fit perfectly. A moment of silence, then the door's locks released with a deep, resonant thud. The door slid open. Voss stood in the dim blue light. Beyond the door was a vast chamber, filled with rows upon rows of cryopods, 3,847 sleepers. Each one had waited 15,000 years for a voice to say their name. Liasai stepped up beside him. "They are alive." "Life support is active," Voss said, reading a console near the entrance. "The power grid is holding. They're still asleep." "Can they wake?" "There's a protocol. It requires an activation code from the council chamber." Voss looked across the chamber to a secondary door at the far end. "That's where I need to go." He started walking. Liasai followed. Behind them, a screen on the wall flickered to life. It showed the countdown. 10 hours, 43 minutes remained. Voss moved faster. On the unyielding asterisk, Ven stared at the proof on his screen. The stolen charter, the copied language. The truth that his entire career had been a monument to someone else's forgotten achievement. Drueth spoke quietly. "Admiral, what are your orders?" Ven did not answer. His synthetic optic had stopped flickering. It was fixed, unmoving like a dead star. Then he stood. He walked to the bridge's main viewport and looked out at the Vagrant, the seed station, the sleeping humans, the 7 sister stations now active across the galaxy. "I have spent 287 years believing we were the first," he said, his voice barely audible. "I have conquered worlds in the name of that belief. I have killed for it." He turned to Drueth. "And now I find that the first were us. We are the ones who came later, and the truth has been written in a language older than my empire." Drueth swallowed. "Sir, the failsafe." "I know about the failsafe." Ven walked back to his chair. He sat down heavily. "We cannot send a message. We are jammed, but we can move." "Move where?" Ven pointed at the Vagrant. "To the station. We cannot stop the broadcast, but we can be there when it happens. We can be witnesses." "That will be seen as an act of war, Admiral." Ven looked at his own hands, hands that had signed annexations, hands that had given the order to fire. "I have been making war on a lie for a century. I think it is time I saw the truth face to face." He gave the order. The unyielding began its approach toward the Vagrant. In the council chamber, Voss found a central pedestal. It was dust-free, maintained by automated systems that had never stopped working. A screen displayed the countdown, 10 hours, 12 minutes. Liasai pointed to a small slot, the chip. Voss inserted the chip. The console lit up. A voice, the same voice they had heard on the **Sparrow**, spoke through the chamber's speakers. Activation protocol recognized. Would you like to wake the sleepers? Voss's hand hovered over the button. He thought of his grandfather who had worn the enduring patch, who had given him the thermos, who had never explained why. He thought of 3,847 humans who had trusted their future to a signal that would outlast them. Not yet, Voss said. First, I need to stop the failsafe. Override requires a council vote, the system replied. There are no council members present, cannot proceed. Voss looked at Liasai. What do we do? Liasai stepped forward. Her small voice carried. I am Ambassador Liasai of the Valley. I represent a species that has remembered the truth for 15,000 years. I request emergency override authority on behalf of the original colonists. The system paused. Then it said, Valley designation recognized. Emergency override granted. Failsafe can be suspended, but only temporarily. A permanent solution requires formal acknowledgement from the conquered. How long is temporary? 48 hours. Voss exhaled. Suspended now. The countdown on the screen froze. A single word appeared, acknowledgement pending. Voss stood back. He had bought them 2 days. 2 days to make the conquered accept the truth. He looked at the cryobay behind him. 3,847 sleeping colonists, waiting for a world that had forgotten them. And somewhere out there, 7 stations still broadcasting the same question. Are you here? Have you come back? He thought of the dent in his thermos, the key that had unlocked a door older than empire. And he spoke the words he had been carrying for 19 years. We are here, we have come back. The chamber held its silence. The cryopods glowed softly in the dark, and somewhere far away, Admiral Ven's flagship was heading toward them, not to destroy but to see. The truth had outlasted everything. Now it was time for the galaxy to listen. The unyielding docked with a jarring clang that echoed through the vagrant's hull. Admiral Ven stepped through the airlock alone, his ceremonial plate catching the dim blue light, his 47 kill mark etchings looking like scratches on an old wall. He had left his sidearms on the bridge. He found Voss waiting in the corridor outside the council chamber. The 2 men stood facing each other, one in human diplomatic coat, one in Zorvani conqueror's plate. Neither spoke for a long moment. Then Ven said, The charter is stolen. Yes, Voss said. I have spent my life enforcing a lie. Yes. Ven looked past him through the open door at the rows of cryopods. He counted them, rows and rows of sleeping humans, waiting 15,000 years. He had never seen something so quiet that carried so much weight. Why didn't they tell us? Ven asked. Why didn't the founders say where they got the charter? Voss answered, because they wanted to be the first. They wanted to erase what came before. They knew if the galaxy learned there was a civilization older than the conquered, their power would collapse, so they buried it. They called the human seed stations a hoax. They made the sector unregistered. They forgot on purpose. Ven's synthetic ruby optic dimmed, and now the truth is out. The network is broadcasting. The countdown is paused, but it won't stay that way forever. We have 48 hours to get formal acknowledgement from the conquered, or the failsafe goes active. You want me to acknowledge it? I want you to tell the truth. Voss pulled the thermos from his coat. That's all anyone ever wanted. Back on the unyielding asterisk, Druoth was trying to restore communications. The vagrant's jamming field had partially lifted, leaving a narrow window for transmission. He patched through to the rotunda. The rotunda was in chaos. Delegates argued across language barriers. The 6 sister stations' signals were flooding every receiver. Liasai's holographic transmission, now linked to the asterisk Sparrow, showed the vagrant's interior. The cryopods, the 3,847 sleepers, the proof of human priority. But the conquered council had no legal precedent for this. They had never acknowledged a civilization older than themselves. The vote would take days. They had hours. Voss knew this. He stood beside Ven in the council chamber, watching the timer on the screen. 47 hours, 21 minutes. "We need a solution," Voss said. Ven stared at the timer. "The council will take a week to decide. They will argue about jurisdiction. They will form committees. They will die," Voss offered. "Worse, they will let the failsafe trigger out of indecision." Ven turned to him. "You have a chip that opens doors. Do you have a chip that rewrites laws?" "No." "Then we do it ourselves. The Concord Charter has a provision for emergency acknowledgement by a flag officer of the fleet, in the presence of a representative of the affected party." Voss looked at him. "You're a flag officer." Ven's face showed no emotion. "I am the ranking officer of the 12th Fleet. And you are a representative of the affected party. I can issue the acknowledgement. It will be valid until the council votes. And when they vote, then the truth will already be on record. If they vote against it, they will have to explain why they erased their own founding document." Voss nodded slowly. "Do it." Ven stepped forward to the council chamber's console. He placed his palm on the biometric reader. The system scanned his identity, Admiral Korath Ven, 12th Pacification Fleet. He spoke into the microphone. "I, Admiral Korath Ven, hereby acknowledge the sovereignty of the Seven Seeds, represented by the human vessel the Vagrant and its colonists. The Concord's founding charter is derived from their original registry. They were here first. We are their successors. This acknowledgement is entered into the official record." The console beeped. The screen changed. Acknowledgement received. Failsafe deactivated. All sister stations notified. Voss let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "That was the right thing," he said. Ven looked at him. It was the only thing. The cryobay hummed with activity. Voss, Liasai, and Ven stood together, watching the pods begin their waking sequence. The system had received the acknowledgement and now proceeded to thaw the first wave. The first pod opened. A woman stirred, pale, thin, her hair lank from centuries of suspension. She blinked, coughed, then opened her eyes. Voss stepped forward. "Hello, I'm Ambassador Ren Voss. You've been asleep for a long time." The woman looked at him. Her voice was rough. "The signal, did it work?" "Yes," Voss said, "it worked." She tried to smile. "I'm Ilera, I wrote the log." Voss felt a warmth in his chest. He held out his hand. "We read it. It brought us here." Across the bay, other pods were opening. One by one, the colonists were waking. They asked where they were. They asked about the Empire. They asked if anyone had come back. And Voss told them, "We came back," we answered. On the Sparrow Vasquez and Tanaka watched the bridge displays as the acknowledged broadcast rippled across the network. The sister stations began cycling down their emergency protocols, entering a standard active mode. The navigation beacons, still online, remained unaffected. Tanaka adjusted her glasses. "It's done. The failsafe is dead." Vasquez sagged into her seat. "How many?" "How many what?" "Waking, how many are waking?" Tanaka checked the data. "All 3,847. They'll all be awake within the hour. The medical systems are online. They've waited 15,000 years. They can wait a little longer." Vasquez looked at the unyielding on the tactical display. "I still can't believe he did that." "Who, Ven?" "Yes, he's been trying to kill us for days, and then he just flipped." Tanaka looked at her. He saw the truth. He had to choose, and I think he chose the only thing that would let him live with himself. Vasquez was quiet. Then she said, "Open a channel to the unyielding asterisk, personal." The channel opened. Ven's face appeared older than she remembered. She said, "Admiral." My name is Vasquez. Lieutenant Commander, I just wanted to say, thank you. Ven's ruby optic dimmed. I didn't do it for thanks, Commander. Then what did you do it for? Ven looked away. For the ones I killed, for the colonies I annexed, for every lie I told myself to keep moving forward. He looked back. You have given me a chance to stop lying. I'm not sure what to do with it. Vasquez nodded slowly. That's something, I think that's enough. In the council chamber, Voss sat alone. The thermos was on the table in front of him, the dent facing up. He had set it there after the colonists began waking. He hadn't touched it since. He thought about his grandfather. He thought about the enduring patch. He thought about the chip, hidden in the thermos for decades, never explained. He thought about all the years he had carried it without knowing why. Now he knew. The thermos was a key. The dent was a lock, and the waiting, 15,000 years of it, was over. Ilara came to sit beside him. She had put on a clean jumpsuit, her hair combed. She looked impossibly young, younger than him, despite being 15 millennia old. What happens now? She asked. Voss looked at the cryobay. Now we rebuild. The network is acknowledged. The failsafe is dead. But the galaxy still has to learn. The conquered still has to vote. And you have 3,846 people who need to find their place in a universe that forgot them. We have you, Ilara said. Voss shook his head. You have yourselves. We just pointed the way. Ilara looked at the thermos. That's a strange thing to carry around. Voss picked it up. It's a key and a memory and a promise. He held it out to her. It's yours now, it always was. Ilara took it. She turned it over in her hands, looking at the dent. She didn't speak. Voss stood. I need to get back to the rotunda. The council will demand explanations, and I have to make sure they understand what happened here. He walked toward the airlock. At the threshold he paused. He did not look back. 3 days later, the rotunda convened a special session. The vote was called. The motion, formal acknowledgement of the Seven Seeds as a sovereign entity with full rights within the conquered. The result, unanimous, 4,127 to 0. Liasai cast her vote in silence. Voss watched from the gallery, no thermos in hand, no patch on his coat, just the quiet satisfaction of a promise kept. Saraketh, the Mavari elder, descended from the highest gallery, her first public appearance in 300 years. She walked slowly to the speaking platform. Her voice was soft, but it carried through the chamber. I was there when they launched, she said. We told stories for 3,000 years, then we stopped. Then we forgot, but they did not forget. They kept the light on for 15,000 years, waiting for someone to remember, and someone did. She looked at Voss. You did. Voss did not speak. He did not need to. Later, Voss stood alone in the observation gallery, looking up at the crystal ceiling. The stars were still cold. The air was still thin, but it felt different. The silence had weight, but it was no longer empty. A door opened behind him. Ven stepped in out of ceremonial plate. He wore simple civilian clothes. I heard the vote, Ven said. Congratulations. Voss nodded. We were lucky. No, you were patient. Ven walked to the railing and looked up. I have been assigned to the First Contact Division. They want me to help the colonists integrate. That's good work. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I'm going to try. Ven paused. I asked for the assignment. I want to earn the truth I gave you. Voss looked at him. That's a start. The two men stood in silence, watching the stars. Voss thought about the thermos. He thought about Ilara holding it, turning it over, looking at the dent that had fit her grandfather's thumb, the same dent that had fit Voss's, the same waiting, the same key, the same hope. He thought about the 6 words he had sent to Ven days ago, asterisk, they were here first. We remember. And he thought about what they meant now. The signal had outlasted the empire. The truth had outlasted the lies. And when the last light finally answered, The only truth that remained was carved into a hull older than empire. It was never lost, it was waiting. Outside the observation gallery, a woman entered. Voss turned. It was Ilara. She had come to see the rotunda for herself. She stood beside him, looking up. "The sky is different here," she said. "Yes," Voss said. "But the stars are the same." She held out the thermos. "I brought this back. I think it belongs with you for now." Voss took it. The dent was warm from her hand. "Thank you." He set the thermos on the railing. The dent caught the crystal light. 15,000 years of waiting, and the only thing he had needed was the same cup he'd carried for 7. The stars burned cold and endless. The chamber held its silence. The truth was no longer waiting. It was already here.